I could hear the others pile in, catching Orlando asking someone else what they should do in case of someone committing suicide. I think it was Haas that was trying to calmly explain what he could, despite the tones of panic in his voice. Dean and Tyson were eyeing each other off, both having rushed over to me to make sure I was okay.
Is eyeing each other off like pawing each other off?
Yeah, eyeing each other off is an interesting phrase to parse. It didn't last long, though. For the moment they'd noticed the gun, they both made a go to retrieve it, ending in them fumbling over one another. Let's not play with the gun.
Yeah,
Let's
don't
not
touch the murder weapon.
No, drop it. Bad. Oh my god. This is an unnecessary move. Dear Lord.
One thing that's interesting here, this is me just talking kind of out my ass about something, but in one of the comments, someone said like they're gonna redo the sprites so that they're more accurate to how the characters are supposed to look. Tyson is a twink, and I'm just looking at the CG, and I'm thinking like, Tyson, they're gonna need to redraw the CG if Tyson's supposed to be a twink, because he does not look like a twink here.
Oh, the comment said Tyson's a twink.
Yeah, because it was like they were saying that the sprites are going to get redrawn to be like accurate heights and weights for the characters, but like
interesting.
It's the problem isn't just the sprites. I mean, it's not really a problem. It's just like, is Tyson supposed to be twinky? He doesn't really seem like much of a twink to me.
Yeah, the sprites give me a little bit of that like Nanoff vibe in that there's just like, this is just how I like drawing men. I draw them this shape. This is mostly
exactly.
just like the whole cast until suddenly Benson shows up is very similarly drawn. Just like this is how I like to draw my characters. Here they go. The idea that Tyson's supposed to be a little guy in any way is surprising.
I think that there's something really suspicious here.
Also, we get a lot of confidently wrong comments, so we might just get a bunch of corrections for that guy now because you voiced the comment.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure that someone. I'm sure that that's just something someone made up, or maybe they didn't understand what a twink was. But the whole point of me bringing that up is just the thought of Tyson being a twink is very funny. The way that when he is drawn like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I never trust the comments though. They parse information strangely and then repeat it strangely. Like when this series premiered, someone just confidently said that the series is in the Sunday slot, and I'm like, what is the Sunday slot? That's not applicable to anything about how my entire schedule works, and it's a publicly visible schedule that you could just look at. I'm like, what is the Sunday slot? That doesn't exist.
There is something really sus here. And I'm throwing stuff out now because I think we're in the phase of the mystery where we can start making call-outs. Dean touched the gun first. That's fucked up. That's weird.
Yeah. Making a move to grab the gun feels weird. Particularly because nobody in this situation is aware that there's murders happening.
Yeah.
Like, metatextually, we were primed from the get-go that there's going to be murders in this game. And David is kind of aware that there's murders in this game. Aside from maybe Sal, but really, honestly, not Sal. Sal, honestly, doesn't really have... I don't think we had a lot to go on with Sal's death as how it was communicated to him that would indicate to him that it was even a murder. Just a weird freezer dream, apparently. So...
yeah.
The death game is not on the table for basically anyone in the story. Like, no one knows that what's happening. Yes. So they're being really weirdly aggro over a gun that is seemingly not tied to a murder to begin with, and there is not a threat on the table that anyone is planning on murdering anybody. So it's not like you have to be like, oh, we better snatch up this gun from the murder scene because it's who cares about preserving the scene for the cops or whatever. We better grab the gun in the case it like gets used against one of us because we're all chomping at the bit to kill each other. Like that's not the scenario in the narrative. Nobody knows to worry about that.
One of the weird things about this is that they step into this room, and as far as everyone else is concerned, this guy just like was a butler with a shitty job who hid from us for a week and then killed himself when he had a shift. Like,
it also sounds like everyone else got here before these two.
Yeah.
So here's our least reasonable line from Tyson so far. I knew I couldn't trust you, bear. Stashing a gun just so you could fucking kill someone with it?
Interesting read of the situation.
Tyson would make a terrible Phoenix Wright. Really bad
very
at
bad.
Parsing the evidence in the scenario. There's not a lot of reason to think that the gun has anything to do with the bear, and you both arrived last, and it's framed as a suicide, and what?
All I'm saying is that he's a reasonable person under most circumstances, not that he's smart. Okay?
Yes, no, he's consistently not smart at all.
He's very, very dumb.
Just a horrible conclusion to draw. Also, like, I don't know, stashed a gun, like, yeah, we don't have a reason to think it's his gun, but even if it was, he could have just had it. Like, he didn't have to, like, hide it anywhere or do anything sneaky with it. You can just have a gun in most situations. I know this isn't necessarily the United States, given the author and all that, so it's not exactly United States level of just having a gun all the time, and I don't know how things are in Australia or whatever, but, like, guns just go in places. If you have a gun, you could just bring it with you. It's not a grand conspiracy to have a gun. Me, rich coming from you, Mutt. Only one packing here would be you, and I'll be damned if I think you can do it in some. I'll be damned if you think you can do in someone else too. My eyes were glued to the gun in their hands, them reaching fist over fist to have control over it. Shakily, my hands made for my head and gripped what fur I could tight. No one else seemed to be saying anything. I know I wanted to, but I was so scared. I was paralyzed in fear. They bickered back and forth, the gun waving wildly above between them until it slipped from their grasp. This is a great way to get someone shot. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh. Did it shoot somebody? I watched it fall almost in slow motion. The only sound I could make out was my own breathing until everything else was broken by the single sound of it misfiring.
It just kills Dave immediately.
My breath was caught in my chest, and my hands scrambled over my body, expecting to feel a patch of wetness or a hole, or even a burning sensation. I let it out as a sigh of relief. I looked to the others. A smile starting to form, but it died soon after. Oh my god!
We get to see the bullet shooting through him. Yikes.
Like it's happening right now still? Jesus Christ, you fuck-ups. You just randomly killed Orlando. Also, Sal is less big than I expected, if this is scale.
Yeah. The difference between the sprites and then the actual art is, like, kind of intriguing.
Yeah. Alright, well, congratulations, guys. You turned the suicide into a murder. You really snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, I guess. Like, what the completely avoidable outcome. My mouth hung open, head shaking gently from side to side, denying what I'd just seen.
He's just sitting here, just shaking his head no.
Oi. Orlando's in shock. As was Sal, who was hurriedly trying to do something about the wound in the dragon's chest. My mind began to swim, having been thrown for a loop multiple times in quick succession. Sal? I don't... Why is it so cold now?
Hold on, please. Hold on. I won't let you die.
Haas was running out of the room and into the foyer. I don't know why. Dean and Tyson were still at each other's throats, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. Sal was tending to Orlando, trying to stop his bleeding with what little he had to work with. Orlando seemed to be hanging off every word he said, trying to stay conscious. Then there was Roswell, who had wandered on over, seemingly in the same state as me, stopping just before Benson's body and looking down upon it. I pushed myself off the wall to stand, wandering over to Roswell. Wandering just feels like a weird word in this context.
Yeah. This doesn't make sense.
It was almost like a mantra with how he seemed to repeat the line over and over, almost trying to piece together why. Looking at Benson's body, I could only agree. Something was off about it. Something that seemed so obvious but was just barely out of reach. At some point, the police and paramedics arrived, taking Orlando away. We were questioned, but they let each of us go. We found our own ways home from there. What had happened creating a rift in the group that bred distrust as to who did what and where the blame should be flung. It's not that deep. It's not that hard to figure out.
There's one thing here that's like kind of interesting structurally that I am immediately noticing. This is going to be a really weird death game visual novel if literally every single time a single person dies, we get a bad end because everyone leaves. Yeah.
The fact that everyone can leave is an inherently surprising. Like, it's so built into the genre that everyone's trapped in Zero Escape and Danganronpa and Battle Royale and the Condemned or whatever, the fucking Prisoners on an Island movie. Like, it's just so consistent because, like, that's how you do the death game. So everyone,
yeah.
The fact that it literally is just like someone dies in a number of situations, but you can undo it. It's just a very strange experience. Made stranger still by the fact that the leave ending is just, you just get up and leave and don't tell anybody, and then they're all gone. And I'm like, that's not what I meant by that.
Yeah.
That's not what anyone meant by that. Roswell's response could be shock or whatever, but I definitely totally just read it as being like, Roswell knows what's happening. Roswell's just in on this and knows what this whole thing is. Because he's a little psycho man. So it's like something about Benson's death like is incorrect, which would match up with the fact that the meeting didn't happen. Like something just was wrong last night, it seems.
Yeah.
We found our ways home from there. What had happened, creating a rift in the group that bred distrust as to who did what and where the blame should be flung. Yeah, that's just not very hard to figure out. I blame myself and my inability to keep things under control. Thankfully, no one else did, because that's insane. A week later, that's some serious protagonist syndrome, which, I mean, you are the protagonist, but you did not create or control that scenario.
Yeah.
I was
literally
at the
had
hospital.
nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I was at the hospital with flowers. Dean helped me pick some out, and with some careful planning, I was able to find a time to come visit when Orlando's family wasn't around. Various dragons in suits seemed to loiter around the place, and there was an air of oppression that lingered in the areas they were stationed. Sal had given me the room number he was in, so thankfully I knew where to go and could make a beeline there instead of having to stop by reception. Funnily enough, despite the state of things outside the room, Orlando was sitting in a chair by the window, enjoying some sun while he played on a handheld gaming device.
Oh, so he's just fine.
Yeah, what if he
this
just
is the
doesn't
happy
die?
ending.
Why?
Where everyone lives.
Why? What's bandaged in this sprite? That's a lot of bulgy wolgy. What's bandaged in this sprite?
Chest and shoulder, I guess. He was shot through the clavicle.
Yeah,
so,
he was shot like in the upper. He was like shot in like the lower shoulder, kind of near the middle. Distressingly, like kind of through the middle, like where there's shit to hit. It feels like it was a worrying place. It was not like a transition scar situation. Like this is a strange anime bandage that you would see after someone's recovering from a fight with Majin Buu or something, but like not where he was visibly shot in the scene. So I'm confused about what the bandage is for.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just maybe he just gets almost dies in multiple scenes and you always get this sprite. Maybe it's just like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Orlando's okay, guys. Maybe he'll still die of complications. I'm not sure what to make of things if no one dies, besides Benson, because the incentive to undo the timeline and put everyone back in danger is really low at that point.
Yeah.
Just seeing him alive and well set my mind at ease. I'd assumed that he'd be in bed, unconscious or something, but no. There he was, as if nothing had happened, shy of the bandages wrapped around his front. Hey, Orlando. How you feeling? Oh, Dave, it's good to see you. I'm sick. I set the flowers down on the table nearby and wandered over to take the other chair next to Orlando. So stupid. Doing okay? The doctors reckon that I got really lucky. Was the wound bad? I'm sorry that I couldn't, and I didn't help. Don't be silly. I was convinced I was gonna die when it happened, but Sal talking to me up until the paramedics came helped. Apparently that's an important thing. Your body can go into shock if it thinks you're gonna die. It just gives up. But Sal's so cool, he saved your life from those idiots. I hung my head,
Good
ashamed.
work.
I'm sorry it took so long to come visit, but I brought flowers. They're lovely, thank you. And I'm sorry you got shot. Dave, it's not your fault. You didn't shoot me. No one did. But those two kinda did. Speaking of, how's Dean? And Tyson? Dean's good. He dropped me off here, actually. He's doubled down on some sleeping medication he's been taking. Didn't sleep for a few days after it happened. By medication? Bear tranquilizers, yeah. Dean killed Benson.
Yep.
Is the suggestion, at least, because they're still reinforcing the tranquilizers constantly, which are also how Sal died.
Yeah.
I nodded slowly, waiting to see if he had anything else he wanted to say, but when he didn't, I continued. Tyson, he's around, still. He's been staying with me, something about not wanting to go back to his, and also wanting to make sure I wasn't too beaten up about, you know. It's not his fault either. It hurt, sure, but well, I wish that, well, it didn't happen, for starters. yeah, I bet we all wish we didn't get shot.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to not want.
Radical thinking. But I guess more importantly that I could tell him that in person? Tyson, I wish I didn't get shot. Oh, I didn't think of that. Him and Dean, really. Maybe in a week when I'm discharged, we can have lunch together. Something quiet, just to settle everything. That sounds good. I'll let them know and try to organize something. Maybe a picnic? There you go. A picnic sounds great. I drummed my fingers on my knees, not really sure what I should be saying next. I still felt bad about what had happened, despite Orlando telling me that it wasn't my fault. You know, this past week I've been wondering something. What's that? If you had a do-over, what would you do different? That has been like a hammered home like theme for this entire route, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you could do something
like, I think
differently.
It's like very much like if you could have a second chance to tell people things, like how would you go about doing it? Like what if you could get around mistakes that happened? It's like very clearly set up.
The non-time travel story stuff is like hooking into the actual loop of the game. Oh, geez, Orlando. I don't think... Humor me. I'd probably try and stop you getting shot, for starters. Okay, but how? Oh, I don't know. Slug Dean in the face? I heard that the weak spot on a bear is the nose, right? Like, you just punch him on the nose? That works?
Yeah. It worked last time.
Yeah, I
laid him flat on his ass.
I learned that from Beastars. A scientifically accurate manga. I think we were just missing something major in the group dynamic at that critical point is all. Maybe not necessarily a tank or something. What? Oh, the party. A tank.
Yeah, because
I thought you meant like battle tanks. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Orlando?
He's just fully gamer brain
Congratulations, Orlando. You were the tank. You took that bullet great. Just walked it off. How do I want to phrase it? Orlando does not talk in video game terms that often, so I forget that that's supposed to be like the through line.
Yeah.
Like I think they were introduced in video game term dialogue, maybe. And then there was that one time in the kitchen as like a reminder, kind of. But he's not like constantly like brain rot video game mode. Everything has to be talked about in video game terms. So tank was just a confusing word in that context. Orlando tapped his chin, stroking his beard, turning to look out the window before continuing his thought. Maybe we had someone that could arbitrate between Dean and Tyson. Don't I do that already? You do, but I mean, in that point, you would have really need to put your foot down, like by punching him in the face, or interject enough that they'd stop. I imagine they'd both listen if you made a demand, especially if they had bear tranquilizers. The secret is to tranquilize everybody and mind control them. Demands are bad, though. Yeah, the demand of please don't shoot someone on accident in this scene, guys. True, but how often do you, of all people, demand something? They'd be more than willing to comply if you spoke up with enough gutso, I think. I'm not like my dad, Orlando. I wish I was, but he was just... I sighed, falling further down the hole of shame I was digging for myself for being so inadequate. Okay, if you don't want to be assertive, just fucking... You were there first, just pick up the gun. You do it. Pick it up, put it in a drawer, just put it away. You can do it. Now, I'll have none of that. You have the markings of a great peacekeeper in your own way. You don't need to be a cop for that. You really think so? I do. Maybe it's something to consider just in case something like this happens again. Not that I'm volunteering to get shot again, but still. Do a thing that cops don't do. Prevent someone from getting shot, Dave. I nodded slowly, looking out the window now too. A peacekeeper, huh? The idea stuck with me, but I couldn't place why. I'm glad you came to visit, Dave. Well, I'm glad to know that things are still keeping together even after all this. To think, he committed suicide right there for us to find him, right? None of you even cared I was gone for 5 days. I'll show you. Is like seemingly the takeaway from their perspective. Like, damn.
Yeah.
You took me for granted. I wasn't convinced either way, but last I heard, it was ruled as such. Honestly, I was just thankful that Dean and Tyson weren't getting thrown in jail for injuring Orlando. But with Benson's suicide calling an end to our vacation, things became... odd. Roswell got really sick and had to be admitted into hospital. After I was done visiting Orlando, I was going to pay him a visit too. Is that the hook? Is this the real reveal? Does Roswell have a terminal illness and all of this is going to somehow save him? He's zero.
If that's the case and we're trying to save Roswell, I think we can just pack it up and be done.
Yeah, honestly, this is the good ending.
Yeah,
everyone just
bye,
move
Roswell.
on without Roswell. God, I said that Roswell was zero like immediately. Dean, despite everything that happened, asked me out proper. Given the circumstances, I took him up on it and we're together. at least as a trial basis. Why? What? Every step of the storyline so far, we've exclusively spent time with Tyson, not Dean. And was Dean like, see that way I shot your friend? Pretty hot, right? Like, how do you follow up? How did you pivot us not interacting with Dean all playthrough into us dating after he shoots someone in our friend group? Like, damn.
Yeah. That's weird. I don't like that Dean swoops in every single time we get a bad end either. I think that's real odd.
It feels weird when we specifically avoid Dean in this playthrough.
Well,
we spend time with Tyson.
I'm confused about Dean in general, and maybe this is something this like supposed like rewrite and re-release can fix, but like way they set it up makes it seem like Dean is advancing on us, but we are not reciprocating. Yet everyone is like, "Oh, you and Dean are together." And it's like, "What?
Yeah.
Are we though? Because like it seems like we aren't explicitly, very specifically not together, and that I have been avoiding him, and yet,
yeah.
like,
but
why does he keep swooping in?
There was some kind of description at the beginning that said that we've never dated, I believe, and Dean keeps wanting us to finally go on a date with him, and we're into it because we were like, why? Because we were like, why? Yeah, why aren't you just jumping his bones then? Like, why don't you just go hang out? Because apparently Dean's really into Dave, and Dave also likes that, and then he likes that Dean's into him and likes Dean seemingly, but just keeps saying no for strange, unknown reasons. Which fine, you don't automatically have to date people or whatever, but it's not that it's like it makes things muddy and weird because it's like a universally understood thing between both of us and everyone in the entire friend group that we're both into each other, and just not saying yes for some reason. And that's in a game where you then can presumably just turn around and just hang out with other characters instead and ignore Dean the entire game. So it makes the tone strange.
Completely. It's like a bizarre. My thing with it is just that it's like a bizarre way to write what feels like a romance the game really wants us to buy into, but it like also is consistently setting up that like, but actually it's not really happening, so you don't need to buy into it. It's like, if you want, it's just a weird way of writing
like the default, and then I guess the fail state always falls back to him, even if you spent more time with Tyson. Tyson said he didn't mind, but left one day saying he needs to sort some things out. Sal stuck around too, ended up moving in with Haas. The pair seemed to do alright. Keep mostly to themselves, but they check in every now and again. Orlando moved in with them after he was cleared from hospital. Everyone's just... The consistency with which people move in the endings is interesting. That's just... It's a wild friend group thing. It's relatively unusual just to move in with any of your friends, let alone... Here might be implying relationships in ways that are unclear. My first gut reaction was, oh, Sal and Haas are a thing? That's surprising. But I don't know, actually. Because I think we both thought that we were in a polyamorous relationship with Dean and Tyson last bad ending because of the implications of us all moving in together.
If not polyamorous, just like a weird, a strange, complex friend and dating relationship that somehow patches up their extreme hostility towards each other. It's very Wolverine and Cyclops both being together with Jean in the X-Men comics now.
I was sitting outside waiting for Dean to get back from work with a glass of lemonade for the last hour. Okay, this must be when something bad happens, right? Because this has to become a bad ending, because it kind of just hasn't been. The weather was nice, and it was date night, so why not wait for my bear to get home and enjoy some sun? My bear. Like all the My Wolf stuff. I pulled out my phone to check the time. He was late. Sometimes it was just traffic, but this was getting a bit odd. Rule was that he wouldn't check his phone while driving anyway, so even if I tried to call him or send him a message, he wouldn't be checking until he pulled up. As I was about to put it away, mid-sigh, it went off in my hand. causing me to jump and spill some of my lemonade on my shirt. Ah, cold. You've been waiting for an hour. How cold can it be? Is it winter? Setting the glass down and brushing off what moisture I could before it could seep into the fabric, I looked at who was calling. I didn't recognize the number, so I ignored it under the assumption that if it was important, they'd leave a message. Yeah, this is the hospital. You're in the contacts list of... it stopped ringing. Guess it wasn't important after. Then it started again. This time, it was Haas calling. I looked out the road quickly to see if Dean was pulling up before answering. Hi, Haas. What's up?
Dave.
His tone was very serious. He sounded out of breath, and I could hear something in the background, almost like a siren.
I need you to stay calm, and I need to know if you're able to meet me somewhere.
Is everything okay? Obviously not. This is not. Uh-oh. The next moment I was standing, abandoning my lemonade to wander to the fence and look down at the street. Not that I knew what I was looking for, but I did so anyway.
No, it's not. There's...
I felt my chest tighten, dreading the worst given Dean's lateness. Is Dean?
Huh?
No. Sorry, you first.
Look, maybe I should just...
There was a sound of the phone being handed off to someone else before a familiar voice came through the other side. Hey, handsome. Dean, what's going on? Why are you with Haas? Why are you late? So, about that, I want you to sit down and stay calm, okay? I did as he said, sitting down on the grass, rather than wandering back to the steps leading up the front door. Okay, I'm sitting. Okay, I'm gonna come and get you in a bit, but... Dean? Orlando's dead, Dave. I almost dropped the phone in shock. What? But... how? Why? When? Just... hang tight. I'll come pick you up and explain. But that wasn't the worst of it. When Dean picked me up, I bombarded him with questions. He didn't answer at first, seemingly steeling himself before delivering more bad news. It wasn't just Orlando. Roswell had been killed as well.
Alright, well, I mean, you gotta break an egg to make a few omelets. That's all I'm saying.
The good with the bad.
Like, yeah, you know, it's a trade-off or whatever. Sorry, Orlando, but... they went to the wrong room the first time, but at least they corrected their mistake. That's all I'm saying.
There's gonna be that one guy that thinks this is a very not funny joke.
It's very funny, and if you think that it's not funny, you're wrong. So laugh and then post a comment and press like.
Sal was a wreck, having been shot as well, but was only nicked in the shoulder. Given how big he was, it was a wonder the gunman missed as they did. So somebody just showed up and started trying to kill everybody.
I can't tell if it's like the way that this is set up. It's there's a gunman who's trying to shoot them. Like I'm assuming like the black sad sniper. But imagine if the black sad sniper was just had really poor aim and shot two of the wrong people.
Like they're just going
getting
for Sal.
the right person. They're going for Roswell, but they accidentally hit Sal and then accidentally kill Orlando. And they're like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's surprised the surprise is that Roswell's supposed to be in the hospital, not living with Orlando, Haas, and Sal.
Yeah.
By sheer chance, Dean was driving by Haas's house when it happened. Roswell, Orlando, Haas, and Sal were all just in their front yard as a car pulled up and fired at them. Is Roswell living with all of them now? 4 of the people all live together now? This is Generation Alpha is just going to be wild about housing, aren't they? Haas came to stay with Dean and I, and Sal joining us just so they weren't near the scene of two of their friends died. My faith had been rattled. The last conversation I had with Orlando in the hospital ringing through my mind. Was there anything I could have done differently? Dean tried his best to help the police track the car from the license plate, but the investigation seemingly went cold. Yet
this makes it seem like Roswell, Orlando, and Dean, or not Orlando, Roswell, Haas, and Dean were all conspiring to kill Sal and Orlando. Or not Roswell, sorry. Haas and Dean were conspiring to kill Roswell, Orlando, and Sal. And now they're feeding poor information to the cops to get away with it. Because why else would Dean be like suspiciously driving right by the house when a drive-by happened? Like, it's just odd.
I was the suspicious drive-by, actually. Yeah, where do they live in reflection to each other? Like, do you commonly drive right by that specific house? I wonder.
It's just weird. Like, the whole chain of events here is weird. Why did Dave like look down the street when you get a call and someone says, "Hey, I need you to be calm"? Do you just look out your window to see if you can see what's going on in the middle of the suburbs? Like, did you really think you were going to see anything there? And then there's just this other weird...
He went to the fence to look down to the street. Gives me a weird sense of space, like there's a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this is a really weirdly communicated thing, especially because right before this we were told, like, Roswell and Orlando are both sick at the hospital. Just kidding, they all live together now and just died on a lawn somewhere. Like, literally the scene after we see them in the hospital.
Well, we knew Orlando was discharged. But
yes,
after
he was discharged.
In this later information during the time skip, it was communicated that that now Roswell's sick. So him being at hospital, so it sounded like he was at hospital, but suddenly he's said to be with the other people, which I don't think is what was said.
Yes.
What was my oh yeah, this is what threw me off. He's replaying the Orlando line in his head. Like he could have prevented this. And this is weird because I understand the core logic of this kind of game and how you hit dead ends and then you want to go back and undo the dead end. It's like when people in a narrative have save states and can make different RPG choices in their own life, essentially. Like, that's the idea.
Yep.
But Orlando didn't die of his gunshot.
Yeah.
It's not tied to any of the choices you made. Unrelated, months, years, some amount of time later, because we just know it's day question mark now. Sometime later, he just gets killed by somebody one day.
He gets killed in presumably a drive-by because they have a license plate number to try to track.
Like, you have guilt replaying from that time that you failed to instantly resolve a weird squabble over a gun where he got shot. And that guilt is replaying when he gets murdered much later by a completely different gunman on purpose this time, which is not inherently connected as events. And so there's no reason to think you could go back in time to undo this. Because if you did, which he doesn't know exactly that he can do that, because this is all like hinting at the idea, but he doesn't fully understand his own power or how it works exactly. But like going back in time and changing the events of that scene in the pumpkin room in no way implies that would change this happening later. Like, this is somebody with intent going to kill him on purpose. It's not it's the butterfly effect. He happened to be in the crosswalk when a bus came by and died. Like, that same person would kill him if he was in a slightly different location that day.
It's one of those things like, I went on a walk with Keith and Keith fell and hurt his knee and needed a Band-Aid. Anyway, 20 years down the line, Keith got his leg amputated and died from complications of surgery. If only I could have gone back to that day that Keith hurt his knee and changed everything for him.
I could have undone that bullet wound he had on his leg 20 years later. Dean tried his best to help the police track the car from the license plate, but the investigation seemingly went cold. Not to mention the streets became more dangerous soon after. You could see, whenever you went to the store, there were less police and more dragons in suits loitering around the place.
Is there like a kobold mafia? Like, what the fuck?
Wait. Was Orlando taken out in a mafia hit?
Yeah, was this like a gang thing that was set up that we missed? What the hell?
What the fuck?
But also, why would they be after Orlando like that? Why would the police be
rival dragon family? Rival dragon family.
I'm so confused.
Or maybe they're all here because Orlando got shot. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
You mess with all of us. Oh no.
Our corner of the world went dark. Something went wrong. There wasn't anything we could do about it. What's our password? Benson is the bad end. We've gotten the Benson end and the Oz end. Resonate?
Resonate, that's what it is.
Yeah, we didn't get a password though, did we?
No.
My eyes settled to the door of the vault. I was curious. Something was drawing me to the room. The door beyond and the keypad next to it. The first few steps were slow, but as I was walking over there with purpose, close to the door, we just said this. Uh-oh.
Try putting the old password in again, Dreamer?
Dreamer? Maybe, but also, let's see.
We didn't get a new password this time.
No, I think we need to get it from from hanging out with Sal.
Possibly, yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So each password has a correct time to enter it too. Okay. Not that, I guess. Okay, so we need to go back and we need to hear Sal and Orlando's outcome in that previous scene. Maybe, and maybe that leads to a different outcome. Because as far as we know, you can't just loop back and act differently during the gun scene because there was no choice.
Yeah, there was no choice.
We need to learn a password, but we didn't gain one. And I'm assuming that we always learn passwords and don't just guess them.
Yeah.
That's probably the case. Maybe this is caused because we slept through the entire event? Well, we're gonna have something to figure out next time.